I want to turn to Donald Trump's latest power grab. Trump now putting one of his personal lawyers in a top DOJ post. She has no prosecutorial experience and is now tapped to be the interim U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. That attorney, Lindsay Hallahan, now leading investigations into Trump's political foes, former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Tish James. The former U.S. attorney in the role was forced out late last week. This all happening at a questionable time. The Comey investigation is now running against the clock. The statute of limitations on Comey's September 2020 congressional testimony running out in just 8 days. The Wall Street Journal reporting lawyers in that office are concerned they could be forced to rush out an ill-found case and have received outside advice to, quote, secure insurance against legal malpractice claims. This all comes amid growing overreach from Trump, declaring Antifa a, quote, terrorist organization in a new executive order, requiring his administration to, quote, investigate, disrupt, and dismantle individuals and groups associating themselves with the anti-fascist ideology, including against, quote, those who fund such operations. And an important fact check. Federal law enforcement has characterized Antifa as an ideology, not an organization. And this marks the first time a U.S.-based entity is labeled as a terrorist organization. So Trump seems to be doing just about whatever he wants. And the highest court in the land is enabling this behavior. The Supreme Court allowing Trump to fire the FTC commissioner while they consider overruling a legal precedent limiting a president's ability to fire top officials at the agency. Justice Kagan rebuking the majority in her dissent, writing, quote, our emergency docket should never be used, as it has been this year, to permit what our own precedent bars. Justice Sotomayor joining Justice Kagan in dissenting, also warning against federal overreach recently. Here's what she said just last week on presidential powers.
Do we understand what the difference is between a king and a president? All right. And I think if people understood these things from the beginning, they would be more informed as to what would be important in a democracy in terms of what people can or should not do.
Joining me now is Leah Litman, law professor with the University of Michigan, co-host of the Strict Scrutiny podcast, and author of Lawless, How the Supreme Court Runs on Conservative Grievance, Fringe Theories, and Bad Vibes. Thank you, Professor Litman. I've got to start with this. The idea that the president is sending federal investigators after Antifa. The first thing that comes to mind is, again, Antifa is an ideology. It's anti-fascism. By that standard, the Boy Scouts, right? The Boy Scouts are anti-fascist. You know, every reading club that talks about the Constitution or American history is anti-fascist. We are not a fascist country. Talk about how dangerous it is that the President of the United States is basically weaponizing the DOJ to go after something that should be a core belief in the American people.
Well, so first, I think we should recognize that federal law actually doesn't allow the president to denominate an ideology rather than an organization, a domestic terror organization. It's also never been the case that a president has designated a domestic entity as a terrorist organization. So what the president is really trying to do here is just stifle political dissent, and I think create misinformation, create a real atmosphere of fear where people are concerned that they are going to be targeted if they actually engage in political dissent and challenge this government as fascist, as authoritarian. And that is what this executive order is designed to do. That's what so many of the president's policies are designed to do, just stifle any political opposition, period. I mean, in addition to the Boy Scouts, I mean, is believing in the tooth fairy now anti-fascist, right? And like now you can be, I don't know, rounded up for that. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the tooth fairy, we know she's a socialist giving out money for teeth and things, but that doesn't mean that she should necessarily be under assault from the DOJ. I want to bring up this full screen. The Trump administration has been really optimistic about getting more favorable rulings from SCOTUS. They are currently on a 16-case winning streak. They are essentially the Miami Heat from 10, 12 years ago. Every single time they go into the court, they seem to be winning. And the problem here is not just that the court seems to have capitulated any sort of oversight, but it brings to mind the issues that were exposed about the Supreme Court 2 or 3 years ago with the number of justices who might be financially or ideologically compromised. You wrote a whole book about this. What's the danger of this completely captured court when it comes to all of these different cases that Trump is bringing in front of them?
I mean, the danger is that this Supreme Court is just going to keep on giving Donald Trump a green light to allow him to do whatever it is he and the Republican Party want. I mean, I think the reality is the Republican appointees on the court have long been trafficking in this fringe theory, the unitary executive theory that has been pushed by the right-wing legal movement that imagines that presidents are, in effect, kings, that they can violate the law, and that they have some residuum of basically king-like monarchical powers, in addition to whatever the Constitution provides for them. You know, Justice Kagan, in one of her previous dissents, has accused the court of favoring this president over our precedent, effectively allowing Donald Trump to preemptively overrule the Supreme Court's prior cases that had said Congress can actually prohibit a president from removing someone like the Federal Trade Commissioner, as he just did and as the Supreme Court let him. And we should look at the stark dichotomy. The reality is that this Supreme Court, with a supermajority of Republican appointees, have allowed Donald Trump to act in violation of congressional statutes. They didn't allow Democratic President Joe Biden to actually exercise the authority that Congress gave him to cancel student debt, and yet they give Donald Trump the power to act in violation of Congress's prohibitions. And I think if you look at that stark hypocrisy, it's clear the underlying ideology that's at work driving their decisions.
So here's the thing. 10, 12 years ago, a lot of people, and certainly people on the left, were not concerned about the Supreme Court. They didn't realize, you know, in 2015, 2016 election, how serious this would be. What is the position that people who are concerned about jurisprudence in this country, that the Democratic Party, what is the position of reform that people should be screaming from the bleachers now? We can't do anything about this current Supreme Court, but should the levels of power ever go into non-problematic authoritarian hands, what's the solution to this? How do we fix this court?
I think the first step is public education. People should understand that it was really the Supreme Court's immunity decision that has enabled some of these abusive prosecutions, because it was in that case where the Supreme Court said the president has exclusive powers over investigations and prosecutions, including sham investigations and prosecutions not based in law. So the first step is public education and building a base and coalition that understands addressing the Supreme Court has to be part of democracy reform. There are many things you can do to democratize an institution like the Supreme Court. You can limit its jurisdiction. You can limit its ability to grant these emergency applications with unreasoned decisions to an administration like Donald Trump. You can impose term limits. You can impose ethics guidance so that they are not beholden to moneyed interests and corporate interests. You can expand the size of the Supreme Court. There are so many things that can be done, and we just need to educate the people and get people invested in changing our democracy for the better, including the Supreme Court.
Professor Leah Litman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you.